Thanks for having me. My name is Makoto. I'm the SVP of product on consumer products and media at Hopper. We're a travel booking company that helps people save money on travel. And I'll be talking about kind of how we think about growth beyond user acquisition, and especially about how we went from a B2C first company to a B2B first company, and what I think you can learn as a consumer business from our path. So a lot of you might know Hopper, the travel app. We're the leading travel app in America for Gen Z and millennials. We have over 120 million downloads cumulatively, very high ratings among our users. And this was kind of the bread and butter of our business for a very long time. What really kind of defined our path is obviously COVID was a really difficult period for us. Our sales dropped 80, 90% month over month, which kind of created like a very existential crisis for the company, which is we need to increase installs as quickly as possible, and we need to increase our LTV as quickly as possible, not just to kind of hit our next targets or reach our next growth objectives, but quite literally just to survive as a business. And so on the user acquisition side, we really focused on how we can crack paid social in order to grow our installs. The reason we did that is that Google search is actually the primary dominant channel in travel. Expedia and Booking both spend quite literally billions of dollars on Google search every year. Booking.com has a $6 billion marketing budget on SEM. And we knew that if we tried to compete with them and all of their sub-brands, we'd probably be set up for failure. And nobody had cracked paid social yet in travel, and we were the first to do so. By getting to the point where we were launching hundreds of creatives every month, or every week, sorry, and eventually figuring out how to get our CPIs down to the point where they were 43% lower than the previous year, and finally allowed us to do paid social and travel profitably. And we were really successful in doing that. We became the most downloaded travel app in North America for 2 years in a row. We were above a lot of our peers who have significantly more marketing spend. When it came to growing LTV, the main thing that we knew we needed to do is that nobody makes money on flights. Airlines are very unprofitable businesses. Flight OTAs are very unprofitable businesses. There's just very little take rate to be collected on flights, and we were a flight-first company. So we needed to grow into hotels. We spent 2 years of very heavy product optimization to finally reach the point where we reached product market fit on our hotels business and grew it to the same size as our flights business. The revenue that you make on a hotel transaction is about 5 times higher than a flight, and that significantly changed our revenue profile and our LTV. The other thing that we did for our LTV is that we built in-house Fintech products to significantly grow our revenue. So most travel companies will work with a travel insurance company like Allianz to sell traditional insurance in their funnel, which means you're sharing a lot of the revenue with another partner. And a lot of customers just don't trust these traditional insurance products. I'm sure many of you here don't buy them when you travel. So what we did is we built products like Cancel for Any Reason, which is not insurance. It's quite literally just you can make a hotel or a flight refundable if you choose. Or Premium Disruption Assistance, which is if your flight's delayed for more than 2 hours, we either rebook you or refund you entirely, all for free. These eventually grew to 40% of our revenue. And the majority of our customers now attach at least one of these products. 65% of our customers will buy at least one of these products. They have very high NPS. All of this was built in-house. We take on all the risk with our own models as well. So the result was that we were able to grow revenue really significantly. We grew 30x versus 2019. And it allowed us to raise a bunch of money. We raised about $500 million in that period. Our valuation grew to $5 billion. But that kind of created the next challenge is how do you grow from 5 to 25? Right? We'd 5x'd in that 2-year period. And we started to think about like, what's the next 5x opportunity here? How to create $20 billion more of market cap. And when you look at the comps in consumer, there just aren't that many large, pure mobile app businesses that aren't social media. Even Duolingo is worth $12 billion, and they're kind of like the gold standard for consumer businesses, right? So we started to really think about like, how do we get much bigger without also getting into the game that every other competitor is getting into, which is just spend more on Google and build a business that is large but ultimately not that valuable. And what we started to really realize as we were building Hopper the business is that in the process of building this travel app, along with the consumer business that we'd built, what we'd actually really built is some of the strongest technology in the travel business in general. And that's how we came up with Hopper Technology Solutions, which is essentially Hopper's B2B arm, which we use to scale our products and our technology. So the first thing that we worked on is commerce, where we realized we were just really good at selling travel. And all the technology that we built for the Hopper app, we realized could become like the Shopify of travel. So now we power travel for Nubank, which is one of the largest neobanks in the world, 80 million customers. TripAdvisor, Uber, power their travel funnels using our technology. And what we're seeing is that we could deliver really large conversion rate increases to these blue chip brands because we had really refined the technology that we used to build our app. We also started to work with global banks that started to use our technology to amplify their rewards offerings and their travel booking. So if any of you have a Capital One credit card, Capital One Travel is a product that we built in partnership with them that allows them to deliver a really strong rewards experience that's a lot better than some of the other credit card portals you've probably tried. I mentioned that we built all these fintech products as well. And what we realized is that a lot of airlines looked at the refundability options that we had or the disruption options we had, and they were almost worried that they were better than the ones that they had on their direct channels. So we went to the airlines and said we could just power them for you, offer our fintech products to you as an API. So airlines like Air Canada, Frontier, Spirit, AirAsia, Virgin Australia, when you book a flight on their direct channel on their .com, you will see like our insurance products merchandised in their funnel. And this allowed us essentially to significantly grow the reach of these products, where instead of just attaching to a Hopper flight booking, you're attaching to flight bookings for dozens of companies now. And they became kind of these category leading ancillaries now where the attach rates are still super high, and we're working with like a whole host of airlines and partners that allowed us to significantly grow the reach of the users we can target with these products that we built in-house. The other product that we built is media. So around 2022, when we were really trying to push our business to profitability, we started to pivot into an advertising revenue model as a new revenue stream for the consumer business. And so tourism boards, hotels, airlines, they want to market to high intent, active travelers. And we were able to build very high performing ad placements that allow them to promote their offering to all the travelers that we have. It increased the profit of our app by about 42%, primarily because it's obviously advertising margin is so high. And it actually pushed our entire consumer business to profitability as a result. And what we realized in doing that is that every other travel company that we spoke to knew that this was a thing, because they knew that Instacart is making $1 billion a year of ad revenue. Uber is making $1 billion a year of ad revenue. Obviously, we weren't the first company to look at this, but all of them told us the same thing, is that the technology is really hard to build or integrate, and the direct sales team you need in ads is really hard to build and build up over time. So now we're rolling out ad revenue as a service as a new B2B offering. So for our partners like Capital One or Nubank, we allow them to earn ad revenue using our ad technology and our ad sales team, which is allowing them to get the same kind of profit impact that we were able to drive on the app with none of the work. So the kind of company that we've created, and the main takeaway I think here for a lot of mobile app companies is really that B2B has a lot of trade-offs and B2C has a lot of trade-offs, but the hybrid allows you to kind of get the best of both worlds. So on the B2C side, what we have is one, it's a business that generates profit. standalone profitable, and allows us to generate cash flow that allows us to take like very long-term bets on the B2B side of the business. It allows us to incubate new product ideas. So any of you who've worked in B2B know that it's very hard to launch a new product with a partner. It's very easy to launch it on your own sales channel. It also allows us to have a very fast iteration cycle. When we launch things on the Hopper app, there aren't calls with the partner to see if they want it. There aren't design reviews with them. There aren't all the operational and legal constraints that come with launching a B2B product. We can iterate and launch whatever we want at the speed that we want, allowing us to have the agility of a B2C company. But on the B2B side, what it allows us to do is significantly scale successful products. So these brands like Capital One, Uber, and TripAdvisor are obviously much larger brands than ours. And what this has really opened our eyes to is the value of partnering with these blue chip brands that have billion-dollar marketing budgets and kind of riding off the coattails of their growth in order to increase the reach of our products. It also means that we take on no marketing spend when we scale these products. And that was always the biggest challenge for travel businesses, is such a high marketing spend industry. And the revenue streams are a lot more predictable. When you sign a 5-year, or some of our contracts are 10-year deals, you can forecast pretty accurately what your revenue will be like next year. It's a lot more dependable than the retention curves or like the payback models that all of us have built and tried to rely on that can be pretty fickle or subject to all kinds of external factors. The revenue streams here are very predictable. And the result was that the B2B side just grew so fast, it's now actually the majority of the business. The consumer business over the last few years this isn't like a collapse in the revenue of the consumer business or anything. It's still growing. But our B2B business reached 9 figures in revenue run rate so quickly that it became 85% of our revenue, and it's growing 40-50% year over year still. So we've essentially kind of become like a Shopify for travel, in the same way that Shopify has a shop app. We are now kind of the Shopify for travel that has the Hopper app. So I think the key takeaways and what I would think about for all of the app companies here is really like, how can you leverage your B2C success into a B2B growth channel? So the first thing I would think about is like, how can you learn on consumer and then scale on enterprise? It's really hard to learn on enterprise because you're relying on second-degree feedback from your partners, and the iteration cycles are just too slow to be able to iterate effectively on a product. If you have a frontline consumer business, you can experiment, and then you can scale your winning experiments on enterprise. The other thing I would think about is, what would your product look like if it was an API? So we used to think of our Cancel for Any Reason product, for example, as a series of screens that we'd built, that we had designed, a user experience that was very set. Eventually what we realized is like the real value of the fintech products we built is an API where you send a flight price, or you send a flight, and it returns to you, how much should you charge to make this flight refundable? That was the actual product. So we really started to think about this for all of our products. Our media product is the same thing. Like, the actual value is an API where you can call it and it returns to you a travel advertiser that is willing to pay to be shown on a travel funnel. And the last thing is, treat yourself as your first best customer. So obviously one of the companies that's really done this successfully is Amazon. And the story of AWS is essentially that because Amazon is such a large org, any team building cloud infrastructure for Amazon had to build it in a way where it was easily usable by all of the teams without significant integration and communication with the core Amazon cloud team. To go from being able to serve every single Amazon team without too much communication to any other team without too much communication is not that big of a leap. But it allowed Amazon essentially to be their own best customer for AWS. The way that we think about the Hopper app now is not so much that it's our app, it's that it's an app that we control that is the customer of our B2B business. So it allows us to be our model customer who's willing to try new things, is willing to experiment with us really quickly. But it also means that all of the products that our app builds are ones that we want to scale across the rest of the enterprise business. So it's been a really successful growth path for us, and hopefully there were some interesting takeaways for you guys as well. Thanks.